The kitchen was quiet except for the soft hum of the fridge, and the blenders were. Angela Craig held a tall cup in her hand, smiling because the smoothie tasted sweet and safe, like every busy morning before work. She took another sip, checked a text from a friend, and felt a strange heat move up her neck. The room tilted. Her fingers loosened on the cup. A bitter note rose in her mouth that didn't belong there. Angela's heart began to race in a panicked drum. She tried to call out, but the words stuck. The cup slid from her hand and hit the floor. Purple liquid spread across the tile like a dark, slow river. Angela grabbed the counter, breath short, eyes wide. Her knees buckled. As she fell, she saw one last thing. On the table, near the blender, lay a small, folded packet with no label, just a tiny tear at the top. Then everything went black. What was inside that packet, and who put it there? Days earlier, the story had started small, like a scratch you barely notice. Angela was a kind woman with a bright laugh. She loved simple things. Making pancakes on Saturdays, picking up her kids from school, walking the dog at sunset. Friends that she always showed up. If you needed soup, a ride, or a shoulder, she was there. She worked hard and kept lists in a neat notebook. Dentist at 10, pick up orange juice, call Mom. Nothing about her life looked like danger, but small things began to feel off. One morning the car keys weren't where she left them. Another night a headache came out of nowhere and wouldn't let go. She blamed work stress and lack of sleep. "I'm fine," she told her sister on the phone, nibbling crackers to calm her stomach. "Just tired." Her sister didn't like the sound of her voice. "Promise me you'll rest," the sister said. Angela promised, because that's what you say when people worry. At home, the house felt a little colder than usual. The lights buzzed. The dog watched the kitchen doorway as if someone were standing there. Angela tried to shake the feeling. She turned on cheerful music, shuffled mail into tidy piles, and cleaned the blender. She liked smoothies, banana, berries, yogurt, and sometimes protein powder if she wanted a boost. She kept the powder in a tall jar with a scoop. It made her feel strong, like she was building a better day. On a Tuesday, she woke before sunrise. The sky was gray-blue, like a bruise fading. She pulled on a sweatshirt, tied her hair back, and opened the fridge. She set out the berries, yogurt, and milk. The house was still. She could hear her own breath. She added a scoop from the tall jar, thick dust falling like snow, and hit the blender. The sound filled the kitchen. Then it stopped. She poured the smoothie into her favorite cup. A message pinged. Her friend asked if she was still coming to a weekend craft fair. Angela smiled and typed, "Of course, I'll bring the kids." But there was another message, one she hadn't expected. It was from a different friend who worked in tech support at a local office. The friend wrote, "Hey, this might be nothing, but please be careful." Attached was a screenshot of a strange search someone had made on a shared computer weeks ago. "Can you taste poison in a drink?" Angela frowned, confused. Why would anyone look that up? She told herself it was random, not connected to her, just internet weirdness. She closed the message, took a sip, and winced. Was a smoothie always as bitter at first? Maybe the berries were old. That afternoon, she felt a wave of dizziness at work. The room dimmed around the edges, like someone was pinching the light. A co-worker suggested water and crackers. Angela sat in a chair until the feeling passed. She laughed it off. "I skipped lunch, that's all." But she wrote a note to herself, "Doctor, if this keeps happening." She didn't want to worry anyone. She hated being a problem. The next day, she woke with a heavy head and a dry mouth. She texted her sister, "Headache again. Might be a bug." Her sister replied in seconds, "Please go to urgent care." Angela typed, "If it's still bad tomorrow. Promise." She meant it, but she had errands, kids to pick up, and a work task due by noon. Life doesn't pause even when your body is telling you that something is wrong. That evening, the house was quiet again. The kids were in their rooms, the TV low in the living room. Angela cleaned the counters and set the blender by the sink. She wanted tomorrow to start smooth and simple. She lined up the jar, the scoop, the fruit, everything in a neat row. She felt calmer, when things were in order. She had no reason to think that order could hide danger. No reason to think that the neat row itself was part of the trap. Morning came, and with it, the hum of the fridge and the whir of the blender. Angela lifted the cup, smiled, and took a long sip. Her chest tightened. Heat surged up her spine. The world tilted again, harder this time, like the floor was sliding away. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A new email from her sister. Subject line in all caps. Angela, call me now. Angela reached for the phone with shaking fingers, but her hand knocked it to the floor. The screen lit up with a preview she could still read from where she stood. I found something. You are not safe. The cup slipped. The purple river spread. Angela's breath came in short, sharp bites. Her knees folded. As she fell, the front door latch clicked open behind her. Someone stepped into the kitchen. The front door opened and footsteps crossed the hall. A shadow moved into the kitchen. Angela lay on the tile, eyes half open, breath short and fast. A voice called her name, soft at first, then louder. Angela? Angela. The person dropped to their knees. It was Lauren, the neighbor, who had come to return a borrowed book. She had seen the door standing open and got worried. Lauren's hand shook as she tapped 911. She's on the floor, she told the operator. She's breathing, but it's not right. Please hurry. The siren grew loud, then stopped. Paramedics rushed in with a rolling bed and bright red bags. They checked Angela's pulse. They spoke in quick, calm voices. One cut open the smoothie cup and sniffed, frowning. Another looked at the small torn packet on the table. Let's move, he said. They strapped Angela in, lifted her gently, and raced her out the door. Lauren stood in the doorway, hugging herself. She wanted to help. She also wanted to run away from the cold feeling spreading in her chest. At the hospital, white lights buzzed. Nurses wheeled Angela into a room with beeping machines. A doctor named Dr. Patel asked questions. Any allergies? Any new vitamins? New foods. Lauren tried her best to answer. She mentioned the smoothies, the headaches, the strange text about a search that said, "Can you taste poison in a drink?" Dr. Patel's face grew serious. He asked the nurse to draw blood and send it to the lab right away. We don't guess, he said gently. We test and we protect. Angela's sister, Emily, ran into the hospital with her bag half zipped and her hair in a messy bun. She grabbed Lauren's hands and started to cry. She told me she was fine, Emily said. She promised she'd rest. Lauren told her what she knew. She left out the part where she had a bad feeling about the house for days, because saying out loud made it sound too real and too late. Back at the house, officers sealed the kitchen with yellow tape. A detective named Daniel Miller arrived in a clean shirt with a small notebook and steady eyes. He walked the room slowly. He looked at the blender, the tall jar, the scoop, and the little packet with no label. He crouched by the spilled smoothie and watched the purple pool creep toward the baseboard. He didn't touch anything. He just looked and thought and wrote one line. Routine morning, not routine result. He asked a young officer to collect the packet and the cup and to photograph every angle of the room, including the neat row of ingredients Angela had lined up the night before. He asked another to check the trash. In the lower bin, beneath paper towels and a cereal box, they found 2 more torn packets. No labels, just the same tiny tears. Detective Miller stood still and listened to the quiet buzz of the light. He felt the weight that comes when a simple room is hiding a dark story. Less extreme things happened next. The team spoke to neighbors. They knocked on doors. They asked if anyone had seen visitors, deliveries, or lights on at odd hours. Most people said no. The block was calm, with kids on bikes and dogs barking after mail trucks. A delivery driver remembered leaving a small box at Angela's door 2 days ago. No return address, he said. Just a company name I didn't know. He couldn't remember the name, only that the box was light and rattled softly, like it held packets of sugar. At the hospital, Angela slept under a light blanket, her breath deeper now, her skin less pale. Emily sat beside her and read old texts to feel close. Jokes about a movie, a picture of pancakes, a list of school supplies. A nurse offered water and asked if Angela had enemies. Emily shook her head. She doesn't make enemies, she said. She makes friends. Dr. Patel returned with early lab notes. He didn't share the numbers, only the plan. We're giving her care to help her body, he said. So far, she is stable. But something is in her system that does not belong. His eyes were kind, but firm. We need to know what it is and how it got there. Detective Miller stepped into the hospital room to introduce himself. He spoke softly and clearly, as if each word were a steady step across a narrow bridge. He asked Emily about the headaches, the messages, and the smoothies. Emily showed him the screenshot her friend had sent. Can you taste poison to drink? The detective wrote this down without changing his face. He thanked her. He looked at Angela, asleep and small in the big bed, and felt a quiet promise rise in his chest. Find the truth, whatever it is. He drove back to the house and stood again in the kitchen. The late afternoon light fell across the counter in a clean line, like a ruler. He opened a small evidence bag and held up one of the torn packets. He did not open it. He just stared at the tiny rip and the way it looked like a mouth that had already spoken. An officer called from the front door. Detective, he said, you should see this. A new package had arrived, a small box, plain brown, left by a courier who had rung once and left when no one answered. The box sat on the doormat, like a quiet animal. On top was a label with Angela's name and the hospital's address. The sender line said only one word, supplements. Detective Miller lifted the box and felt the soft rattle inside, like little packets tapping each other. He set the box on the table between the blender and the tall jar. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe for a moment. Then he tore the tape, opened the flaps, and looked down. Inside were 10 more unmarked packets, identical to ones in trash, along with a neat card that read, For a faster recovery, add 1 scoop to any drink. Detective Miller stared at the card in silence. The handwriting was smooth, almost elegant, the kind that came from someone calm and confident. He placed the note in an evidence bag and signaled the forensics team. No one touches anything, he said firmly. His voice echoed through the empty house. The air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves knew something terrible had already happened there. He called the hospital immediately. Dr. Patel, he said, keep Angela under close watch. I think someone's still trying to reach her. The doctor's tone tightened. She's still unconscious, he replied, but we'll make sure she's safe. Back at the station, Miller laid out the items on a long metal table. Photos of the kitchen, the torn packets, and the new box marked supplements. He sent 1 packet to the state crime lab for testing. Hours later, a call came through. The voice on the other end was clear and cold. Detective, that powder contains potassium cyanide, lethal in small doses. Miller closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. Do we know where it came from? The scientist answered. We traced a partial shipping barcode. It was ordered online through a fake nutrition site. Payment routed through a prepaid card. Name. The line went quiet for a second. Kenneth Craig. Miller froze. Kenneth, Angela's husband. The next morning, the hospital smelled faintly of sanitizer and coffee. Emily sat by Angela's bed, reading aloud softly. Angela's eyelids fluttered. She opened them halfway. Her lips parted, voice weak but clear. Emily, don't drink the shake. Her sister's eyes filled with tears. It's okay, you're safe now, she whispered, brushing Angela's hair back. But inside, Emily's heart raced. That single warning made everything real. Detective Miller arrived minutes later. He waited until Angela's breathing steadied, then quietly asked, Mrs. Craig, do you remember who made you drink that morning? Angela blinked slowly. It was already ready, she murmured. He said he wanted to help me feel better, more energy. Miller nodded. You're doing great. Rest for now. We'll take care of the rest. Outside her room, Emily caught up with him. You think Kenneth did this? She asked. I don't think, Miller said. I know. He showed her the lab results and the order receipt. The time stamp matched the week Angela first started feeling sick. Meanwhile, Kenneth Craig was at his office, smiling as if nothing had happened. He was known as a charming, smart man, a digital marketing specialist who loved to brag about his perfect family. His co-workers said he brought flowers for his wife every Friday, posted happy photos online, and never raised his voice. No one could have guessed what was happening behind those pictures. Detective Miller and 2 officers arrived at the office around noon. They found Kenneth in a glass meeting room, typing on his laptop. "Mr. Craig?" Miller said calmly. Kenneth looked up, surprised but polite. "Yes." "I'm Detective Miller. We need you to come with us for some questions about your wife's condition." Kenneth stood, hands slightly trembling, but he smiled. "Of course. Anything to help." At the station, the polite mask began to crack. The questions came fast. "When did you last make your wife a drink? What kind of supplements did you use? Do you know what cyanide does to the body?" Kenneth's smile faded. "Cyanide? I don't know what you're talking about." But Miller slid the printed receipt across the table. The car number, the shipping address, the company name, all led back to Kenneth. "This is your handwriting on the delivery card, isn't it?" Kenneth's face drained of color. "I only wanted her to feel better," he whispered. "Better?" Miller leaned in. "You ordered poison. You watched her drink it. And when she didn't die fast enough, you sent more to the hospital." Kenneth's voice broke. "She wanted to leave me," he said quietly. "She was talking about divorce. I couldn't let her go." His eyes filled with tears, but they were hollow. "If I couldn't have her, no one could." The room went silent. Outside the window, rain began to fall, slow, steady drops tapping the glass like a clock counting down. Angela woke later that night, surrounded by family. Dr. Patel smiled gently. "You're lucky to be alive," he said. Angela turned her head toward the door, as if expecting someone to walk in. Her sister squeezed her hand. "He's gone," Emily whispered. "They have him." Angela closed her eyes. A single tear slid down her cheek. Not from pain, but from relief and disbelief that the person she trusted most had tried to end her life. Detective Miller stepped out into the parking lot after the arrest paperwork was done. The rain had stopped. He looked up at the gray clouds moving apart. Somewhere in the hospital above him, a woman was breathing again because a neighbor knocked at the right time. He thought about how close she had come to being another quiet headline, another story that ended too soon. His phone buzzed, a message from the lab. "Detective, there's something else. The order history shows multiple shipments to other addresses." Miller frowned. "Other addresses?" "Yes. One of them is still active. Same name, different city." He stared at the screen, the raindrops running down his windshield like veins. He started the engine. There might be another package, another name, another woman who didn't yet know her next drink could be her last.